had like four total of interviews. I had a couple of interviews in the fall. One of them I got to the final stage, but they were not ready to sponsor H1B, so that offer got kind of rescinded. And then in February, I had like 4 different job prospects, and 2 of them I had like an on-site pending, and that's when the pandemic struck, and then all these positions got cancelled or suspended. And since then, I have not had any other interview calls. So I'm right now on F1 OPT, so I have like 1 month left to find a job. And I've been trying to get the STEM extension by trying to figure something out with my professor. I'm trying to get him to hire me, and so that I can at least extend till like November or something, and hopefully the job market improves. And meanwhile, another plan I have is doing a PhD with the professor who I did my master's thesis under. And if the job doesn't work out, that's my plan B. And plan C is always going back to India and trying to figure out if there's any opportunities there. So with regard to my master's, my thesis was mostly focused in thermal design, if you saw from my resume.
Yeah, I saw.
And the focus of my thesis was in understanding heat transfer at different length scales. So I did that through working on 3 different projects. And primarily my research was modeling and simulation, but I did do some experimental work in one of the projects because I wanted to do something more industry focused. And that's where one of the projects involved optimizing the design of a transformer. And that was my part in that project was the thermal design and thermal modeling, and then doing steady state temperature testing. So that I did have some testing experience there, but most of my thesis was modeling and simulation. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And so right now I'm just a little confused as to what to do next, because with the pandemic, the job search is even more difficult, and I can't figure out if I should go for the PhD or go back home to India or just wait it out for a while and see if the market improves. So that's where I need your advice.
Sure. And you know, right, you are not the only person who are having this problem.
Yeah.
So let me ask you one thing. Do you have a loan or something from your masters, or any undue pressure you have from something that you, because for many students I have realized that some of them have loans and they really don't want to go back because they want to pay that and all that.
Yeah, so thankfully for me that loan thing is not a problem, because the second year of my master's was funded by a teaching assistantship. So 1 year I didn't have to pay tuition fees, and the other year I was able to pay it off before even the interest started. So I don't have a loan problem. That's a good thing.
Good. And let me ask you one question. When you came here versus now, does anything has changed, like what I want to do, or it's pretty much the same? Like when you came here with an idea, right? I may go for a job or whatever, or I want to stay here, does anything has changed? Considering the COVID, you mentioned a lot of things about visa status and all that. I want to hear that. Looks like there is another thing that is in your mind, right? Uncertainty about the OPTs and H1s and so forth. So anything has changed in that respect?
Definitely some things have changed. My initial goal was when I came here to get some more deep technical knowledge, and I was really interested in heat transfer and thermal design, and that's why I wanted to research in that. And the main goal was never a PhD. It was always to do 2 years of masters, get some research experience, because I wanted to know what that feels like, and then go into industry. But ever since I started job hunting, it's just
right. So when you go for industry and work in US and move with your life.
Yes.
Like that, right?
Yeah, work for at least 3 or 4 years, and then evaluate whether I should go back home to India with that experience or continue. I mean, I thought I would decide at that point and cross that bridge when we came to it, but
sure. And let me ask you, is there any specific company that you are very interested in working with in your area? Can you name like a company which would be one of the dream company you would like to work for or something?
Yeah, so like I said, my thesis was mostly thermal design. So the dream role I would say is thermal engineer role, and these will be the main companies that hire these thermal engineers, or like Intel, AMD, NVIDIA, your semiconductor companies and your chip manufacturing companies.
Right.
So those would be my ideal companies to work at. But again, as the job search has gone on, I've like broaden my horizons and have like multiple resumes of multiple positions, and I've been doing all that. But ideally, thermal engineer at Intel or AMD.
Looks like you have been watching my videos quite a lot.
Yeah, I've watched quite a lot of your videos, and I was like, a lot of your things that really resonate. Yeah.
No, that's good. I mean, that is the whole idea of making the videos, right? Somebody should watch it, and then my jobs become easier.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought I would just mention those things so that it'll be easier for you as well.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned that. So, I mean, in one of our videos, I think I spoke about the hiring freeze at Intel and other companies, right? So, I think there is
Yeah.
no point in talking about those things. Do you know at this point what are you thinking? What comes to your thought about your long-term plans? Are you really keen to stay in this country, or you think I don't know whether I should go back, or because you mentioned like doing PhD, but I'm really thinking, do you really want? Are you really interested in PhD? Because if you are not, and if you say if you say I'm gonna do PhD for next 4 years or so, I'm worried about are you gonna burn out or something?
I mean, I'm not worried about burning out because I was pretty good at research when I did my master's thesis research. I was interested in it, and I went above and beyond, even though it was master's.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. The reason I ask you this question is, many students come here. The normal process is I'm gonna go for a master's and then I'm gonna find a job and live my life, right? But what happens is many times you also hear students, I came here as a master's, but then I really found research interesting and I started doing PhD. Or something happened, I couldn't find a job, then I joined a PhD, but then I loved it, things like that. So I'm trying to evaluate, are you one of those guys where accidentally you're going to join a PhD and you're probably going to like it, or you're going to say, I don't have an option, I should do a PhD, but looks like talking to you, you were interested in research, right?
Yes, I mean, I was pretty interested in research, and one of the reasons I didn't go for a PhD was because the research group I worked in was a little more fundamental based, and I wanted to do something more applied. And I felt like getting an industry job, I would be able to do something more applied. And if my group offered so that kind of applied projects, I probably would have gone for a PhD. But since at that point I was thinking, like, I want to do something more interesting, something more applied, and industry is the place to be, and then also earn money and all those things,
Right. So you're saying the project those that were funded were not collaborative research grants from industry, but more or so they are like NSF projects or something.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, understand.
And
I mean, it's I won't say it's extremely rare, but let me tell you what happens, what you will find very often. So when I did my PhD, I was fortunate enough to work on a project funded by General Motors. So I had an insight from General Motors research people and their feedback, but it was not nowhere close to application at all.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to tell you is most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, or probably much more, most of the projects you will see that is funded to universities are what we call, there is a term that is used in technology is TRL. If you Google it, it's called technology readiness level. So just to give you an idea, when you write something as a concept, you say it's at low TRL. That means it's just concept based, it's theoretical or it's just outlined. But iPhone is a high TRL level because it's a consumer product. You understand? That iPhone has started somewhere down the road, right? So what I'm saying is most of the university research is low TRL.
Okay.
So let me give you a very brief example. You may be working on a material which is good at high temperature, let's say, okay? But you won't be seeing the application of that material for a turbine blade, or you won't see it where it's being used for jet propulsion or where it's being used for high temperature application. You know what I mean? But you will be very much involved in looking at the grain boundaries, how the how the dislocations flows, or how the materials behave, what are the creep properties at those temperatures and so forth. But there will be an application, and that's what I'm saying is you will always find most of the university funded research is at low TRL level, a basic science, what we call. So
Okay.
if you're looking for a proposal, the reason why I say so, because if you're looking for a project that is more application oriented, it would be tough to find. You can find it only one way, if there is a project out there which is has some on site from industry, like, for example, I do a lot of collaborative research agreements with universities, but the only reason I do it because I don't want to do any fundamental research because I don't have time, right?
Okay.
So, but we always are in touch with the person or the professor. I mean, professor doesn't work, eventually it's worked by the student or a postdoc, right? So if somebody is working on it, we always want to know what's going on, right? So
Yeah.
what I'm saying, you will have that insight, and you on all these projects. Most of actually, to be honest with you, most of the NSF proposals are basic sciences level, very basic science. So usually you don't see any application. That's how it's structured is. But if you
Okay.
see a lot of some proposals that are funded by Department of Defense or Department of Energy or ARPA-E or things like that or DARPA, they would be more application or you will see some application. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is you can always find a project which is like that, but it doesn't mean that NSF proposals doesn't have an on insight of application. You will always for a motivation purpose, I think you should and you will always find an application if that is your that you're saying, because I don't think that you
Yeah.
in a university you will be able to find an application unless until a professor is working on a device design or something, you know what I mean. I mean,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
most of when I said like application based and application related, what I meant was the research I was doing was primarily, like I mentioned, modeling and simulation. So I wasn't really getting to see that in effect or
Yeah.
like doing some experiments to see it verified. So something more along those lines.
Yeah,
And I know
I understand.
academia and industry is always going to be, there's a huge gap, and it's never going to be
Right.
exactly what they do in industry. So
No, no.
yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm not saying that whatever you are doing, there will be no applications. Not like that. There will be, but in university is far away from the industry always. So you will always find that unless and until, as I said, there are some professors who are very applied, very applied, and they do. Sometimes some professors are so close to industries that they work closely with the industries or we didn't touch it, but there are very few of them.
Okay.
Okay, but again, as I said, you that's very rare find. So that what I'm trying to tell you that should not stop you in saying that I don't want to work on a problem if I have a if I'm interested in PhD and if it's a good place to work and so forth.
Okay.
It should not
Yeah.
stop you. Yeah, and let me go through your questions one by one. Probably that might help. So your first
Yeah.
question is about the job market that's going to happen 2020 and hiring freezes and all that. So, you know, for me to answer that question, whether what's going to happen to the uh, job market anytime soon, I would say that I'm not sure. Everybody at this point, I'm not sure everybody is watching. So if you look at, so let me give you a very clear example. For you, finding a job at Intel for next 6 months, I don't see is happening.
Okay.
Very specific. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What about August 2021? Maybe, because everybody. The reason why I'm saying that the many industries who are having problems right now. So let me tell you, the startups right now are in a very bad shape. The only industry which is
Okay.
in a good shape, which are carrying some cash or are funded by government and so forth, right? Some PP loan money and so forth. So they are dragging themselves. The industry
Okay.
like Intel or something, the reason I think they have freezed their hiring because they are very worried about their next quarter and a quarter after that, and they will report some losses, and I think that might be the reason they are doing it. But eventually, if you look at the crisis and the housing crisis and all that, things were better. I would say a year or at least took 2 years or so, to be honest.
Okay.
But if you, let's say, one of the things you said, what if I join a PhD and if same thing happen? I don't think so, because by the time you will, for a PhD, it's going to take you minimum 4 years, let's say, right? I think by
Yeah.
the time you will be in a very good shape. I mean, nobody can say another pandemic will come, but considering,
Yeah, I understand.
yeah, but I think anybody who is going to join PhD right now would be in a better shape, much better shape.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's for sure. I don't think that is the case. That's going to happen. So I know people, to be honest with you, at NC State who have joined PhD from material science, has graduated and joined Intel, but they were a few of the last ones actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I know people. A couple of my friends have joined actually from, not friends, like my juniors and juniors. I know people at NC State material science and mechanical engineering professors and so forth. So I know their students have joined it, and I met actually one guy. I don't remember his name at TMS, and he just joined. He was one of the last ones, I think. And I have friends
Okay.
who are managers at Intel and so forth, and so that's my basic understanding. And
Okay.
also, I would say, being a PhD student going to Intel, I think much preferable. That's also, I can tell you. So that's another thing too. Although, whenever you join Intel or companies like that, they always put you. The first year you work like a technician, so b- just be
Mm.
careful. But
Yeah.
uh, but, uh,
Thanks.
but as I said to you, that you should be fine after 4 years. But I'm really not sure in December. For sure, I would say companies will be very reluctant. At least, what I'm thinking is, because the election year is coming, everything is very uncertain, to be honest. So I don't think anybody is
Yeah.
going to take chance. And unless and until this November election going to open up, and this pandemic and everything, and people are saying another wave is coming, I would be very, 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 very careful. So even you can wait till December and you won't find anything. So you
Okay.
can say, I can wait and I won't find anything, or I can wait for a year and then same thing happens, that the market is very slow, because there is a lot of pending people, right? New people will come, and then there is a backlog. And
Yeah.
companies like Intel have policies. They don't hire anyone after, I think, 18 months after you graduate or something. There is a policy.
Okay.
So just be
Oh,
careful.
okay.
Yeah, so once you graduate, they don't hire anyone after 15 months after that or so.
Okay.
I mean, at entry level, you can have a lateral hiring, but that's manager and all. Okay.
Mm.
Another
Okay.
question from you is, several companies moving back to India from China. Does this mean India job market will improve and all that? Most of those jobs, I will say, are in manufacturing. If
Mm-hmm.
that will happen, so that's another thing. I mean, you can always look for jobs in India, like keep applying if you find some companies and so forth. But it totally depends on you. What you I know many friends who have graduated with me in masters at like 10 years back have gone back. I know few people, but they were mostly in computer science also. But I
Mm-hmm.
would say that
Yeah.
it's not like, I know people who have gone back working GE India, Bangalore. So there are some people folks who are working too. But again, it is, you can only make that decision once you find that job, right? So that is the one thing that you have to be
Yeah.
really think about. You just don't want to go back and not find a job.
Mm. Yeah, that's my concern, because even before the pandemic, going back to India with a master's and zero experience, it's very difficult to find a job, because you're in the same pool as a freshers, bachelors. So, and you don't have any more on campus help either now. So,
Yes. No, no, not only that. I think there are students there who are looking for a job, and um, I was talking to a student actually who lost his job and was in H1 visa or something, but he has to go back, and now he's
okay.
there. Yeah, I mean, so situation is, some people are really in bad shape. So I talked to one. He's from Hyderabad or somewhere, but not a good situation to be in. So
Yeah.
you are here. The only thing, you said you have only one month, so I would be a little bit careful, because you don't want to be out of status for any reason. Because if you
Yeah. So
become
I,
out of status for any reason, for sure, long term survival here is almost zero. Then you will be in trouble for many reasons.
yeah, I understand. And I'm pretty confident like I can get that STEM extension, because my professor said he can hire me for 3 or 4 months. And based on that, like my university also approved it and said that yeah, you can do that. That'll give me time up till November, and my professor said that if he were to hire me as a PhD, then that would be in spring 2021. So that kind of lines up there. So by November, if I don't find anything, then I do have the option to start in January
Right.
for PhD. So
Right. And you said another thing about applying for PhD in Canada. I would say if you have already have an offer here, there is no point. I won't do that. And
yeah,
even
because
for
because of OPT being scrapped and all that, that's why I was afraid. Yeah.
I think to be honest with you, let me tell you, and I think I have spoken to many videos on that. For you, the chance of staying in this country for a longer term with a master's degree as an Indian is almost zero. But if you have a PhD,
Okay.
then your chances of having a green card, become a citizen is much higher, very high.
Okay.
So as a master's student, not many people think in that way. Trust me, it's not a fun thing because right now you have a problem finding a job. The other problem you will always have is losing that job. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
like,
no, it's
even though if I get it, no job security. Yeah.
no, there is a job security, but just talk to anyone who has a master's degree and he has been here for 10 years. What is the first thing they fear about is losing the job because they don't have any path to citizenship. Because you need that. Because if any pandemic happens after 15 years, right now you are young, you can serve, you can flex, right? And I can give you my example. I'm not gonna go what other people. When I used to work for Rolls Royce in 2018, they fired everyone, and and it took me 3 months to find another job. And if I didn't have that, I would have been back to India. I had a house and everything. What would I do? You understand my point?
Yeah, I understand.
So,
like, if you're older, then it won't be that easier to adjust to something like this.
Right. I mean, still I can find the job, but to be honest with you, 10 years after, I'm pretty sure the people who are 50 years old, and there are many stories. Just Google it. I mean,
yeah, and I've been seeing that. Yeah.
So there's so many people that struggle with, and honestly, what happens if you don't have a green card or citizenship and path to citizenship, you will always live in the mercy of the employer. You can't do things. I mean, you are the best person to work in the world, but nobody can hire you.
But even with the PhD, I don't think it's that smooth sailing to a green card, right? Like, there are like set of requirements you have to hit on that EB1, EB2 visa part, but you can't get it straight after PhD either. That's the thing.
Okay, let me give you. So we always talk in terms of probability, okay? Because nothing is absolute, right? So if you have a bachelor's from India and you are here for a job, getting a green card is maybe 2% chance. Or so when I say 2% chance, I would say in 25 years. And if you have a master's from here, I would say your chances right now would be you have to wait for another 20 years right now.
Wow.
But if you have a PhD, you can get in. If you have a publication and you're fine, you have a good, you're working in a company as R&D guy. I would say in 2-3 years, max 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, because you don't go through certain things, and the current administration, and as I see in last 15 years, advanced degree, everything is much smoother. But other ones have gone down. Even if you have an MBA, to be honest.
Okay.
I have friends who have been here with me and have an MBA and they don't have a green card or anything. Still, they are still working on H1. And many students, I have spoken to many when they said, what should I do? I mean, that's one thing that people don't understand. That again, that's my question to you. What you would like to do, right? If you say, I would like to go back to India, I don't care. I won't suggest you that. Then, do something MBA, get some degree, work for 2-3 years, go back. End of the story. But if you say, no, I really want to stay here, then really do something which will help you to stay here.
Yeah.
So just evaluate that. It doesn't mean that. So, but again, you should not do PhD because that helps you for immigration. PhD you always do because you have interest in it.
Yeah.
Right. So,
that's for sure. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if you do that and if you like to stay in this country, that's the way to do it. Because then you will be. I mean, here's the thing. Another thing I speak in my videos, right? the future you are looking for? Are you saying, okay, in 20 years down the road, I want to be a vice president at Intel heading the R&D industry? Just look at his job profile. He will have a PhD. You won't find a master's student having a vice president of R&D or a CTO of R&D. Everybody will have PhD. Again, degrees are overrated, but that's how it is. So do the right thing now, right?
Yeah, I understand.
All I'm saying, this will motivate you to do the right thing, help you to make a right decision. But again, what's your goal is that's more important. Your goal is to become to go back to India and serve poor people. That's your choice. But then do that. That's what my point here is. But if your goal is to stay in this country, work for Intel, but if your goal is to stay in this country, maybe work for 2 3 years, go back, you don't have to do PhD.
Okay.
But at the same time, there are many people who say that, oh, I'm going to stay here for 2 3 days and then I'm going to 2 3 years and I'm going to go back, including me. I never went back and many of my friends. So that's also a thing.
Yeah, my initial thought process was that, just like you said, 2 3 years and then reevaluate what's the situation. Is it easier to get a job in India, or should I work a few more years? And then priorities change, so.
Yeah. And again, as I said,
so right now,
the more clear you are right now, the much better it is. If you have no clarity even for what I'm going to do for 2 years or 3 years, that would make your decision, much difficult.